What's the right way to use technology? Well, let's think about this a little bit deeper. Technology should be an aid to humanity. If technology takes over our lives, we're going to talk about this in another podcast, but imagine a world where artificial intelligence, let's just say, took over the workplace. It took over our lives. And so if we're not interacting with the world, if we're not interacting with people, we're just slaves in a way to this technology. How quickly do you think you're going to get bored or lonely? These basic human needs, these basic human desires are going to get sidelined. The drive and motivation in humanity is going to suffer immeasurably. And so, I think as long as we allow these technologies to improve our lives and we are able to self monitor, to self guide in a way, which is very hard for a lot of people, by the way, then maybe technology doesn't have to take over the world and we don't necessarily have to be ready for new innovations, new technologies. We just have to be mindful of how we're using it and the potential implications for society. For example, let's look at gene editing as well, another technology that in mainstream technology, what you think of first is mobile phones, computers, etc. But even medical technologies like gene editing. I actually just published my honors thesis that I did in college at the university level on my interpretation of quality of life in individuals with genetic diseases. Because I myself was born with a rare genetic disease, and so I wanted to wanted to think about what if we introduce these new gene editing technologies? What does that do? What does that say about our identity as people born with these genetic mutations, these diseases, these edits in the genetic code? If we were to go in and manually edit it, what does that say about us? What does that say about our identity, who we are? And one of the results that one of the conclusions I came to about that is the idea that gene editing can be a very good thing for our long-term medical health. However, it doesn't necessarily, unless we let it, it doesn't necessarily take anything away from our identity. Again, that depends on our theories of identity. If we identify ourselves by our DNA, then it might seem unnatural, or at least that's what people argue, is that, let's say it's God's will that our DNA be unedited. But the counterpoint to that argument is, all right, well, isn't it also God's will to create the gene editing technologies? Otherwise, it wouldn't have been invented. And so it gets into a whole spiral of what should we be doing with these gene editing technologies. We've created it at the baseline to start with to eliminate genetic diseases because we saw it was causing harm. But we need to make sure that that doesn't go too further, because then people start talking about, oh, we have this new technology. Ooh, what else could we do with it? Well, what else should we do with it? Should we be editing newborns without any genetic predispositions or diseases? just so that they can have a different eye color, just so that they can be taller. I'm a 4 foot 8 inch tall man. Sure, I would love to be taller, but it doesn't necessarily matter in the long run. Where does this end? Where does the coulds about technology end? And where does it intersect with the shoulds? I hear some people, in documentaries and social media, people are talking about the should, but the people who are creating technologies are not talking about the should. And I think that can be very problematic. And it's a way to think about technology as, no, we're not ready for new technological advancements, and we never have been, we never will be. But we need to be asking the should question. We need to be asking whether or not we should be using these technologies in various ways. I'm very for all the emergences of these new technologies, proud of technological innovations and entrepreneurship, and it can create a wonderful world for all of us. But I'm concerned about the direction that humanity is going, especially as technology is exponentially innovating and exponentially increasing in the last several decades, and it's going to continue this way. Because again, we we saw with ChatGPT, no one was really ready for that. But what are people already doing? They're already using it for personal gain. They're already using it for using it so that they don't have to work. Basically, they're using it so that they don't have to think, or using it so that they don't have to do as much. And that's really too bad. I mean, it really it can help. For example, I'll use artificial intelligence like ChatGPT to help with YouTube content creation, but I use it because it's a baseline, and the creative work that is going into that video is not necessarily all about the content, because it is about the content, the way that I spin it, the way that I phrase it. It's about the delivery. It's about the delivery of the content. It's about personal stories that you add to it. And so I'm using it as an aid, not as a replacement. That's why immediately when ChatGPT was becoming a lot more well known and well used, what did teachers, schools, what did Turnitin.com do? They tried to stop it. They knew, we've got this new technology that's going to allow students to plagiarize. We need to stop that from happening. And so Turnitin developed software to be able to detect AI and flag it as plagiarism in students' essays. And I've talked about this in another video. I'll link to it in the description for those of you on video again. But in order to address people's use of technology, we need to address the desire first. Why are these students using ChatGPT? Why do they not want to do their own creative work? And that could be a whole nother podcast in and of itself on the education system and the pressures that students face, etc. That can be a whole nother thing. But it's just another example of the accountability that we need to take personally and collectively with the uses of these new technologies.